Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm at the Midwest Writing Center, and today we get to do a little Collins Writers Conference preview with one of the instructors, poetry instructor Skylar Alexander. Skylar Alexander wears many hats. She's an English teacher in an online private school, a book designer working with small presses, nonprofits, and individual clients, and a poet. She also writes creative nonfiction and flash fiction. Her debut poetry collection, which I am holding, Searching for Petco, was published by Forklift Books in 2022, and other work of hers has appeared in numerous places. She's earned degrees in English and entrepreneurial management at the University of Iowa and a master's in secondary education from NYU Steinhardt in 2022. She's a part-time digital nomad, splitting her time between her native Midwest, the East Coast, and abroad. Thanks for hanging out with us, with me, Skylar, and thanks for teaching at the conference.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So first I want to talk about, you write in multiple forms, right? I've seen essays from you. I don't think I've seen the flash fiction, but what attracts you to both poetry and prose?
That's such a good question. I think when you get really deep into writing, you start to realize that form is kind of a convention that you're following, but the meat of storytelling, the meat of writing is all kind of the same vein, or at least that's my opinion. And so some things are better served in the form of poetry, some things are better served in the form of like a creative nonfiction essay, some things are better as a recipe or a postcard, like who knows, right? So like depending on the nature of your work and the story you want to tell and the impact you want to have on your audience, different forms allow you even more opportunities to do that. You're muted.
Thank you. That's a great, super easy segue. Since your workshop is called Beyond, Rethinking Form, Structure, and the Limits of the Page. It's a poetry workshop. I'm going to read the description for folks who maybe don't know it. How can thinking like a designer change the way we write? In what ways can space, structure, and visual form shape the meaning of and elevate a written work? In this workshop, we'll study masters of breaking conventions and use them as our guides as we push beyond the margins and reimagine our work. Through a series of writing prompts and design experiments, we'll generate new writing and reshape existing pieces, pushing our writing to the margins and beyond. So you mentioned form, which is a favorite topic of mine.
Mm.
And then of course that's relevant to this workshop to reimagine whatever it is that we're writing, or perhaps something we've already written, into maybe a form that suits it better. Actually, do you mind defining the word form for me?
I mean, I'll do my best. I mean, form is kind of just like what something, like the shape something takes. And the kind of, I mean, for me, like I'm thinking like the form of like a page has limits, right? And so you understand the limits of a page, where you can go to the edges of that page. But like a page is only one way to produce a work. There are lots of like what happens if your page is the size of a poster, a movie poster? Suddenly your conventions can change a lot. If your form is a, text message, you have a certain number, or at least you used to have a certain number of characters that you had to work within right before. That's it, right? So like kind of thinking about the way, like the technology in which you're using is kind of the form in which you're working, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, that's perfect. I like to define terms.
Mm.
I like to imagine that, not like just because you're a good writer or a passionate one doesn't mean that you know all of the jargon. And of course, vice versa. Not knowing the jargon doesn't mean anything about your abilities. Um, okay, great. So um so why do you think it's important to rethink how we think about form and structure?
Well, if you think about form being dictated to you by technology, that means that you are giving your creative lens to technology. Like you're giving like its framework is the way you have become limited into seeing your own sort of perspective, right? And because of that, I think like being able to at least like understand your relationship with how the technology, how like the Microsoft Word page is affecting your ability to like envision your work. You suddenly become free to try a lot of other things if you can kind of think beyond. Hence why the workshop beyond, going beyond the margins towards other things. You are muted
Yep,
again.
of course I am. I muted on purpose, and then I didn't remember to unmute. Oh, I love that because, I'm drawn to things that mess with my expectations, but I've never thought about my relationship to the medium and
Mm,
how much the medium dictates because I don't know, you take it for granted.
precisely.
And there are a lot of folks out there doing really cool, really like heady hybrid work who have
Mm,
obviously, surpassed the limits of the medium. And that's really cool. Um, but how do you get there? And that's where
that
you
is
come
the
in.
question. Ah, well, I have some, I'm not gonna say that I have the answer. I have some answers to trying to play around and see what experiments work with you. I think we have to sort of adopt I don't know what I'm doing mindset in order to try to do things that you've never done. I think especially once you become like a writer of a certain like level in your career, you start to get into a pattern where you feel safe and comfortable. Like I'm a poet. I just do poetry, and I do poetry that's about like 6 words long on the left-hand margin, and that's my style. That's who I am. Is it who you are? Is it the only thing you can be? Like Whitman himself, right? Like I contain multitudes, right? We all contain multitudes. Like maybe you can also, what happens if you move that left aligned poem to the center, to the right? What happens if you put huge spaces between the lines? Do they breathe differently? What happens if you mess with the kerning or like the spacing between lines? So like the lines are like basically touching. What kind of effect does that have visually on the reader? Because I have that background as a designer, I think about like how words appear on the page all the time. And I think it is like, it's a way to make a designer hate you, maybe to have all these complicated designs, but also it's a way to kind of shock the reader into thinking differently. And isn't that what we're trying to do? Like change someone on some level when we write something? I think so.
Wow, that was beautiful. Um, and I think really important, a really good I feel like that was a really good intro to your class.
I'll have to
So
remember to say that in the class then, you know.
you basically have already answered this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. What is something that you hope your students will take from the workshop?
I hope that you leave my class like willing to try new things, to having like some new tools and like techniques. So like maybe you've written a poem and you don't know how to like why isn't this getting published? Is it just a crappy poem or is it not like have I not finished it? Have I not found the way that it needs to be on the page? Because words are like we begin poetry with an attention to words and sounds and all of these things, but that isn't usually how they end, right? Like the way you visually represent it, especially in, today's world where we're so visually minded with like the way media works, like how can I make this thing stand out? How do I make this thing publishable? Sometimes it is a matter of playing with like the way it looks and how that influences the like user experience, like to like borrow UI language, right? The user experience and the interaction with your piece. And so I'm hoping that I give you some tools to do that, and you feel more comfortable and emboldened, and you've tried all these new experiments, even for generating kind of this unusual experimental work. That's kind of the name of the game here.
Yeah, I definitely think that whether or not something ultimately is a good fit for me, experimenting and like being uncomfortable and playing for just the experience of playing will always teach me. I know there have been a lot of prompts that just did not inspire me, but having done them got me in motion.
Right. Sometimes that's all like it's like the rock at the top of the hill, right? You're trying to get it rolling somehow. And even if it rolls in the direction you don't intend, like maybe you'll find something nice in the track it leaves behind or something, right?
You just make metaphors like it's
You
easy.
know, poetry skills. You
Um, I imagine that there's something, I mean, for me personally, I'm like I'm like begging to be introduced to something new and wacky. but I imagine that there's something really helpful and powerful in the discomfort of trying something so new. Now, I mean, I know that's true for me, but that's not my experience with wacky. Uh, if you were like, it's time to make, you know, formal metered rhyming poetry, I would cry. Um,
Mhm.
and that's probably
Me
something I
too.
should try. Um,
I mean, yeah, it's good for you. Like taking vitamins is good for you, but it doesn't always taste good.
right. Um, so yeah, is there something about getting through that place of discomfort into the unexpected that you're
I hope
assuming
so.
is important?
Again, we're going to be experimenting. Like this is going to be like we're all in this together. I'm going to throw some stuff, and maybe you guys will have some stuff to share, and this can be more collaborative than that. Like classes don't have to be up down; they can be all around, right? So like hopefully other people maybe I'll give you some initial stuff. If you want to riff on it and come up with new things, then like you are more than welcome to do that, students of my class, right? But I do think you have to, I'm reminded of something that I read recently, where how do I say like there's a like this art class that's being taught somewhere, where one of the assignments is you have to go sit and look at a painting for 3 hours. And do nothing else. You have to sit in the museum in a chair staring at a painting. You can choose whatever painting you want, but you have to do it for 3 hours. And that the first hour of this experience for most people is probably the most excruciatingly and discomforting sort of experience, right? Like I want to do literally anything else but stare at this painting. But then once you've put in that discomfort work, something interesting starts to happen where you begin to sort of see um, something that you couldn't see before. And so I think like we all have to kind of get more comfortable with being uncomfortable so that we can kind of make something new.
I love this. Thank you so much. I think I wanted to hear that. Um, but I didn't know how to say it or if it was like something I believed in, and it is. So thank you. Um, Now you said you implied that your background in design is what led you to start thinking about the visual aspects of your work. Why do you think that's an important thing to think about?
Well, in book design, it's essential for selling a book. If you have an ugly book, people don't want
I
to
meant
read
for the writing.
it. But from like a writing perspective, I mean, I think like again, because it's like so when you're typesetting books in like a program like InDesign, you see like there are options that are available to you that aren't there in a Word document. Like if you're in Word, like you can play with margins to a point, you can play with like some text alignment to a point, but like actually having physically movable text boxes that you can change the different size of and then kind of layer them over each other, this sort of element isn't available in the technology that you have access to. But if you like had a piece of paper and like a pen and you actually like thought to work that way, you could do these things kind of like manually. And I do think for like a long time people did do weird stuff manually. Like if you look at like medieval manuscripts, like I mean they are weird in places, profoundly strange pieces of like art and like writing, right? Cave paintings, right? Like I mean if you look at a cave painting, like they're not writing but like they are telling stories visually, and they are doing it on the wall of a cave, right? So like I mean like we are limited by our tech and how we like access information to think about these things. Um,
But we don't have
but
to
like
be.
we don't have to be. You don't have to agree to like the status quo in this way. But anyway, like thinking about like so the design element, like you can do more when you have access to like the nuts and bolts background stuff that other people don't see. And that opens up your world in a way that can be really intriguing as well.
Cool. Then I've got a bonus question, which is unfortunately just going to be kind of an annoying question.
Sure.
What do you love about poetry?
Ah, what do I love about poetry? I mean, poetry, like I have like this very strong relationship with it because I didn't begin as a poet. I wanted to be a fiction writer, and I don't really write a lot of fiction now. And I thought poetry, like I mean, the only poetry I was exposed to as a young person was like Walt Whitman, Dylan Thomas, Robert Frost, like these kinds of things, which are all wonderful, but they are by no means the end all and be all of what like even American letters is, right? So like, uh, the poetry ended up then becoming a thing that like was really like world building and world changing. You see like slam poetry, that was a huge thing, and like just seeing like the way thing like you can tell a story in such a tiny way, in such a contained and self-contained way with poetry that I think is really uh for me very attractive because I'm terrible at finishing projects. Poetry is finishable. I mean, if that makes sense. What I love about poetry is that I can do it and it's done.
Well, I have questions about that. Nope, that's all I have for you. Is there anything you'd like to add about your workshop or your writing? I suppose.
Well, I hope you all come and we can hang out and do a good thing together. We can make memories, make poems, make mistakes in the words of Miss
I
Frizzle.
was trying to,
Uh,
I was getting that vibe. I was like, get messy and
I'll put my hair in a big frizzy bun and we'll have a great time.
I would love that. Cool. Yeah, information on Skylar's workshop, all the other workshops, and registering for the conference are on our website at mwcqc.org. Go sign up now. We want to see you. We want you to have this extra set of tools to write more light into your life. Thanks.